PIA engineers are on the strike, and naturally, the flights they were being affected for the last few days. I have the spokesperson of the Pakistan International Airlines, Mr. Abdullah Hafiz Khan. Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullah, for sparing your precious time. Please tell me what is the situation when we are talking at the moment.
Thank you so very much, and thank you for having me on the show. Right now, the operation is pretty much normalized in the sense that there is no such flight disruption or cancellation on account of any engineering strike. Yes, there have been few incidences whereby some flights did get late, but those flights were primarily due to either operational reasons or for the rationalization of flight schedule or due to weather and other related challenges. So pretty much the operation is back on track. PIA's total flight departures as of today were about 67 departures. Sorry, today was 52 departures. Yesterday it was 67 departures, and all of those flights have actually operated.
There was certain news of the windscreen of one of the aircraft was damaged, and then it was being grounded. So, what was the actual, situation? Was it a kind of dangerous for the passengers? That's why it was being grounded. And what is the situation right now?
All right. So thank you for asking me this question in the sense because it is creating a lot of misconceptions and misperceptions out there, and a lot of false narrative is being floated on it in the sense that you need to understand that aviation overall is generally designed to be the safest mode of transportation, and still is. Statistically speaking, aviation is the safest mode of transportation, and the primary reason for that is that there are contingencies upon contingencies whereby one safety mechanism is backed up by another safety mechanism. Similarly, the windscreens of the cockpit are three layers. So technically there are three windscreens stacked together, and just in case one windscreen is has cracked or is unusable, or even the second windscreen becomes unusable, the flight is still airworthy. On the incident that you have just mentioned, it happened on the 6th of October, 6th of November, where the flight was actually, traveling from Lahore to Jeddah. And upon departure, the innermost windscreen got cracked. The flight was in perfectly capable hand. The flight was perfectly safe to actually move on to the destination. However, the captain in command decided to divert the aircraft to Karachi because Karachi is the largest, engineering hub for PIA. The flight landed in Karachi. Passengers were moved to the hotel. It took us 18 hours to repair or replace, rather, the windscreen. It was replaced. And after that, after giving it a proper curing period, the flight became airworthy and it was departed. Now,
So
unfortunately,
where the
yesterday,
passenger? Sorry. Okay, please complete it. Please complete.
so the passengers obviously departed with the flight. Passengers were all Umrah Zaireen, and they actually moved. They were moved from the hotel back to the airport, and from Karachi airport, they actually went
Right.
on to their destination. Last night, there was an innuendo in the sense that there was a false news circulated by one of the most prominent channels in Pakistan, saying that the windscreen has, indeed got fractured again, and that was false in the sense that there was a small scratch noticed on the windscreen, and because we are having some issues with a particular pressure group inside PIA called the Society of Engineers, they actually blew it out of proportion. They actually zoomed into that crack and sent those pictures, creating an impression that the scratch was a big crack about 2 to 3 feet wide. The aircraft was airworthy. It flew from Jeddah to Lahore. From Lahore, it went back to Jeddah this morning, and right now the plane is in Karachi. So that was an innuendo. That was a false, narrative that was being circulated.
Kindly tell me that why this society of engineers, uh, they are on the protest. What is their actual demands?
All right, so their primary objective rather than demand is to halt or sabotage or create delaying tactics for the privatization process. A lot of people are apprehensive that privatization would entail people losing their jobs or would entail, probably, tougher working conditions. And people who are used to not working or people who are used to living it easy would probably find it difficult to operate under private management practices. So that is the primary apprehension for the society that you have actually mentioned. The other part is that they want their salaries or their packages to be revised. The plea that they have taken is, and bear this in mind that this year they have already got a 20% raise in their salaries, and they want another
Was
50%
it according to
because
the,
they
sorry
think.
to cut you, was that raise was according to the budget that the government presented and the announcement that the government made, or was it more than that?
All right. So, a very great question in the sense that you need to understand that PIA's employees are not technically considered as government servants. And, any provision that government makes in their annual budget is not passed on to PIA employees. PIA is an autonomous organization which decides on the salary increments based on its own financial health, because the payroll of PIA is not paid by AGPR or not paid by government. Hence, the raise that government decides for the government employees is not applicable on PIA employees. PIA's employees got a raise this year after a lapse of 3 years, and the primary reason for that was that during last 3 years the inflation probably has hit 50%. So naturally, PIA's employees' salaries were had half its expendable value compared with what it was 3 years ago. So obviously, salary was raised. Engineering outfits also got benefit, from the salary raise. Now their demand is that because PIA's pilots have received their salary raise, based on the fact that there's an acute shortage of pilots in Pakistan, and a lot of airlines are trying to get our pilots, our trained pilots, out of PIA by offering them really, really lucrative packages. The same case does not apply to engineers because, quite frankly, the demand for engineers is much less with what the demand for pilot is. So, in order to retain the pilots, obviously the salary was raised or their allowances were revised. But that pretext or that pretense cannot be automatically, applied to the engineering outfit as well. The salary raise, I this is the general understanding that the salary levels of PIA's engineer is right at the market value. Other employees might be working below market value. Pilots might still be working, below market value. But it is a general understanding that PI's engineers are working at their market value. So the demand for salary raise, obviously, this is the belief of the management that obviously it is not justified. However, they were assured many times that their demand would be given due consideration, and the topic or the agenda is already on the board's next board meeting. So that was already going on. Now, the demand that they actually made or the narrative that they are actually trying to sell is that they want salary raise or they want this is not the sole reason. The primary reason is to halt or sabotage the privatization process.
Privatization.
The
Okay.
secondary
I Yeah. Please go ahead.
the secondary can you hear me? Yeah. The secondary reason was to protect the president and the general secretary of that society because they were already undergoing disciplinary proceedings. They were given many chances to actually defend themselves or actually, give their comments on the inquiry proceeding, but they chose not to do that. They chose to actually, refer to or apply political pressure on the management or to use their constituency or their society to create pressure on the management. However, they were not successful in that, and they were eventually, last week terminated from service. So that was the secondary motive. Primary motive remains the halting of privatization. Yes.
So, kindly tell me, because there were certain. Do you think that all these engineers which are working in PIA, they are qualified? Their education is up to the mark according to their positions. Uh,
All right.
what is their strength
Another
at the moment?
So another interesting question. You need to understand that I'll more particularly like to speak about the so-called president and the general secretary of this society. They are not engineers by education. They do not possess any engineering degree which is
Why they were
accredited
being
by.
hired then?
All right. So both of them were technicians, and technicians are people who assist engineer. Over the years, after spending a lot of time, they actually moved up the pay groups. Both of these engineers, so-called engineers, were not even qualified to work on the aircraft that they are actually trying to project to the world that are unsafe. So you need to understand the irony of the situation in the sense that they are trying to pose as engineer. They are trying to portray as someone which they truly are not, and they are
No,
trying to
but
create a narrative based on fact.
my question is, Mr. Abdullah, that if they were not being qualified, if they didn't have the required degrees or the education which was being required, how they were being promoted? One. Second is that why these successive managements kept on promoting them, and the managements were being blackmailed by these associations and societies, and they were being and they fall into their trap. So why they didn't remove them at that time? Why they remained there for so many years, where they have bleeded the entire this airline, the national airline?
Another very interesting question, and thank you for asking this because there's a lot of misconception regarding that one. Uh, Most of these engineers are actually they get promoted on time scale in the sense that they've spent 25, 30 years in the organization, and normally you move from one pay group to another after probably having spent some time in it, in the sense that there might be a condition that after 7 years you would be naturally promoted to the next cadre. Most of these people actually got promotions because they have been working with the organization for a very, very long time. So most of these are time scale promotion. The other thing is that management de-recognized this entity many years ago. Unfortunately, I would actually admit that about 5-10 years ago, there were certain pressure groups within the organization that unfortunately started running shadow management, and management was very weak, so they allowed that that ingress into the
So
affairs of the
they were
master or
like a
the
state
mandate.
within a state,
Yes,
the
they were a
management
state.
within a management.
Many states within the states. You need to understand that there was a very, very strong union. Then there were an officer association. Then there was an
Who were
engineering
backing those
association, and then
associations? Who were backing them?
most of these had political backings. You need to understand that PI is one of those organizations whereby our unions are directly linked with the major political parties in Pakistan. So unlike many other state-owned institutes like power
So
distribution
it means
companies
that
or telecom company where.
the financial situation of the PIA that today it is facing, behind them are all those people who were on the top in Islamabad.
That is, in fact, correct to say, in the sense that you need to understand that management has a certain mandate to run the organization, and obviously, they have their own set of priorities. That priorities may or may not be aligned with the priorities or the preferences of these associations. For instance, and I'll give you an example. For instance, PI operates from point A to point B, and the time limit or the regulation by the regulatory civil aviation or the regulatory authority of the world suggests that a cabin crew can fly for, like, let's suppose 12 hours non-straight, and then they need a rest for 24 hours. So sometimes a flight of 4 hours might not need the cabin crew to take a sleep or to take a rest at an international destination. So naturally, what other airlines would do would be to make it sure that they do an up and down flight. They go travel for 4 hours, the plane stays there for a couple of hours, then they take the plane back for 4 hours, and that is a total 10 hours duty within the allowed limits. But what has happened was that these association, by exerting certain pressure and political pressure on those subsequent managements, they actually decided that they would actually take a break at these international destinations, because they wanted to do religious duties on the cost of the airline, or they wanted to have an international stay on cost of the airline. Now that not only overall inflated the overall costs of operations for PIA, but also it created a shortage for the crew. And that is just one example. There are many other examples, whether it pertains to pilots, whether it pertains to the engineers, whether it pertains to many other factors. What happened was that management decided about 5 6 years ago that enough is enough. It had the mandate from the government, and then it started to enforce its right. Apart from CBA, which is the collective bargaining agent, which has a constitutional or a legal mandate as per the Constitution of Pakistan to bargain on behalf of the employees, all other association and societies and such institutes which did not have any legal basis or any constitutional mandate, they were eventually de-recognized, and management just stopped listening to them. Now what happened was that these technical forces, such as the Society of Engineer, they have a certain clout, because naturally you need them to clear the aircraft. You need them to give a go ahead, or to supervise, or to scrutinize your operation. So they kind of use this influence or this mandate to exploit the management had been successful in last many years to curb this influence, and management has full intention to do the same even this time around.
How many aircrafts are on the ground, and how many are in traveling or taking the passenger at the moment?
So PIA's total fleet comprises of 34 aircraft. That includes 12 Boeing 777s. That includes about 17 Airbus 320s, and rest are ATR 72 and 42. Out of those 34, today's number was that we had 18 operational aircraft, doing flying duties. Two 320s and two of 777s were in maintenance, which means that they would be back in flying duty after some time when the maintenance activity is done. The rest are in storage, and some of them might be able to be
The
restored
rest
back, but
mean
some of
that
them might.
22 are operational and 12 are.
22 are airworthy, rest are in storage. So they would need some effort or some maintenance work to be actually brought back to flying duty. But you need to understand that some of these aircraft are old, so it might not be an economically feasible or a viable option to actually invest money on them and then bring them back on the back on in flying duty. So they might be replaced with the newer aircraft. Now, I would also like to point out that, and this is one of the challenges of PIA, and because you have spoken about fleet or you have inquired about fleet, so I find it pertinent to mention here, is that PIA is in dire need of newer planes. Newer planes means less maintenance. It means less cost of maintenance. It also means better cabins and better product. Unfortunately, right after COVID, aviation industry has surged, and the demand for planes have increased many times. The biggest challenge is that Boeing is falling back on its order, and it is having its own sets of challenges. That is creating a huge demand in the international aviation sector for for the planes. So right now, the lead time for a plane, even if you want to get them on lease, is about 2 years, more or less. PIA needed to invest in its fleet about last year or last to last year, because we were anticipating the situation whereby we might need planes by mid or end of 2025. Unfortunately, the decision pertaining to fleet acquisition or even getting fleet lease is a long-term decision, which means that whatever decision that you would take would have its implications on maybe 6 years, 7 years, 8 years down the road. Government of Pakistan, because it had already decided that they would privatize PIA, actually left this decision on any party who would be actually acquiring PIA or who would be bidding for PIA, because this is a decision that the new party needs to take. Unfortunately, 2024 was a gone year for PIA in the sense because the privatization process, despite all the fanfare and all the enthusiasm, could not go through. 2025, the privatization process has started again in April, and it's still continuing. And right now, the government has given a date of 10th of December
December.
for the bids to come in. So that means that we unfortunately could not decide on the planes in 2024 and not in even in 2025. Fleet acquisition or fleet plan would be the primary decision that any new party who would acquire PIA would have to take in the first few days, in business. So that is something that is a very critical area for Pakistan International Airlines, and that is something that PIA, unfortunately could not work on, but is looking forward that we would work on it in next coming few months or weeks.
How many new parties or the companies have shown their interest for the privatization? Because
All right.
last time
So the
when we
fine.
met here in Islamabad, sorry to say, uh, it was the only one company, one bidder, which placed a very low, bid for the PIA, which was quite a laughing stock for such a national carrier for so many decades that this company was serving the nation and taking our flag to the world.
So you have reminded us of bad times, and it has created bad memories for us. So this time around, there was some learning from the process of 2025. So government or the privatization commission, for that matter, has put in certain checks, including putting in a certain turnover for the interested bidders to actually have or possess before they actually bid for PIA, and other some qualification and prerequisites that would make the process more stringent, and ensuring that there is much more serious bidders this time compared with what happened last time. So right now we have about four bidders that are still in the race, starting with Fuji Fertilizer Company. Then we have YBG, which is Yunus Brothers Group. Then we have Arif Habib, and there was a news item yesterday that probably AKD have also joined Arif Habib for the bid of PI, and the fourth party is Air Blue. All of these are one of the largest corporate houses or business organizations in
Entities in the
Pakistan.
country.
So
Yeah.
yes, so the financial muscle is there, so the strength is there, the corporate
Is the Punjab government
experience is
also
there.
shown its interest?
No, Punjab government, as I understand and as per my limited information, is pursuing its own path of creating a separate airline, within the ambit of the government of Punjab. So they are pursuing their own venture, and they might have their own setup or own structure. And interestingly, I think they are also contemplating on having their own separate airport for those flights to base or operate.
Quickly, couple of questions. I understand that you had a very busy day today. Please tell me that do you think that the earlier you have mentioned that there must be certain people who are behind these engineers protest. They might be trying to create some kind of confusion in the minds of the bidders, or you know, trying to reduce the price of the PIA, or the bid of the PIA. So, do you think that there is any kind of indication or any substantial evidence of this hypothesis?
All right, so this is not just a hypothesis in the sense that this is a discussion that has unfortunately, got triggered from one of the uh, shows that happened this morning. And during the whole course of the day, this is something that, kept on resonating with us. So this might not just be a theory or a hypothesis in the sense that, there's a general idiom that if it walks like duck and it quacks like a duck, then it is a duck. PIA obviously is one of the most prominent brands in Pakistan, and it is one of the largest entities or the largest brand, Pakistani brand that is visible in international arena. PIA has certain assets which are very valuable. PIA has certain routes that have a great value. Now, if repute or goodwill is one of those assets that PIA actually has. In recent days, you might have noticed that there has been a surge in the positive equity or a positive perception about PIA ever since our European operations got resumed, and that was
Resume, yeah.
followed by UK operations. The amount of the enthusiasm that we received once our flight actually landed in Manchester, and the overall excitement that people in UK had for PIA and the resumption of flight, and the way UK airports are actually approaching us to consider those airports as our next destination, shows that the goodwill has come back. Shows that the confidence on PIA or on the flight safety of Pakistan Aviation is back, and that is something which is unprecedented because I've spent some time with PIA. I had a considerable career, and in my years in PIA, I've never seen this sort of excitement globally what we are currently seeing with PIA. That has a value. Now that value should translate into a good bid for PIA, and you need to understand that the bid for PIA obviously means or obviously is beneficial for the government of Pakistan and the people of Pakistan generally, because people of Pakistan are the owners of PIA. Now, efforts like this, and I started our conversation by saying that, the whole purpose of this activity is to sabotage the privatization process. So it might not just be a theory or a hypothesis that, activities like this and creating false narratives and innuendos and false news, and creating an impression whereby PIA is not safe again is part of, this sabotage activity to to either halt the privatization process or to create conditions whereby the privatization either does not go through or does not yield in value for the government of Pakistan, which eventually decides to let go of this project altogether.
What is the counter strategy?
So the counter strategy is that we need to fight false narrative with facts. We need to show to the world through our actions that Pakistan International Airline is one of the safest airline to travel. Those actions do get translated when we get permissions to fly to Europe, or when we get through or complete the
PIA is
audit.
also going, sorry, PIA is going to Canada as well, direct flight.
So PIA currently is flying to Toronto, it is flying to Manchester, it is flying to Paris, it is flying to China, it is flying to Kuala Lumpur, it is flying to Gulf and Middle East. So, and obviously it is flying domestically as well.
So what about the other European destinations? Are they
All right. So
open? Do
other
you?
European and the whole Europe is open for us. The UK is open for
Okay.
us, and we can operate to any destination if you want when we want. Right now, our focus was that right after Paris, we would actually expand into UK, and after UK, we might focus back on Europe, probably starting with Scandinavia, probably, considering Spain and Italy as our next destination, because these destinations have sizable Pakistani diaspora and there's a
Yeah.
significant demand over there. So these are obviously, on our roadmap. This is something that we need to do. And, this is the plan that we would eventually start unrolling our flights and, reconsolidating our foothold in the European and UK market.
What PIA management is going to do with these engineers who are creating problems, financial problems, as well as the image problem for PIA?
All right. So for the image problem, obviously we have uh, started countering it by sending in facts, and showing the world that the overall scrutiny, the overall safety culture in PIA is as per international standards, and there is no hurry factor, or that there is no kind of like an environment, a hostile environment whereby people are asked to release the flights on management pressure, and that is not the case. And management has abstained from taking any action against the engineers on that account, and management has shown ultimate restraint to settle this situation. What
Do
my
you have a
understanding is that
you are holding a discussion with these engineers? I mean, the management.
all right, so there's something that also needs to be discussed, and that is that these society actually do not represent the whole of the engineering fraternity.
Okay.
Most of the engineers are not part of this fraternity, and they are still working. They are still
Okay.
performing their duties after due diligence and as per the requirement, and they are pretty much the workhorses that are still making it sure that PI operations is ongoing. The other part is that I actually think that this movement is already losing momentum, and as the engineers are actually coming back, and they are understanding that they were being played by certain factions with ulterior motives, so they would actually come back. So that is why I'm saying that PI's flight operation is now resumed. The smaller hiccups that we still have might still be there for next couple of days or 3 to 4 days, but I think within this week the whole situation would be resolved.
Thank you very much, Abdullah Hafiz Khan, the spokesperson for PIA, sparing your precious time and educating our viewers on this very important issue, especially the people who want to travel within the country as well as outside the country with PIA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on the show.